Hi again then guys, and welcome to a review which a lot of people have been asking for, understandably so. It's one which I would have liked to have done earlier, but I quite simply didn't have the cash to do so, because this of course is one of the first 3 DLC cars which we've got on Gran Turismo Sport. Free DLC of course, the Audi R18, the 2016 model in particular, the Shelby Cobra, and the ISO Zagato Vision GT car. Now this one first of all is arguably the most significant of the 3 in terms of how much racing use it will probably get. For me personally, I would say that the Cobra actually means more to me, because that is a harbinger that we will indeed have more classic cars, and I'm a huge classic car fan. But we'll get to those other 2 in due time. We may review the Cobra again. It depends. We have of course reviewed it before, but seeing as the specs will probably be different, I don't know. I'm not going to cancel it out or rule it out either way. As far as this one goes, we do already of course have an R18 in the game, and it's already a good car. It's a great rival for the GTR Nismo, the Porsche 919, the Toyota TS30 and TS50. So how does this newcomer compare to those? Well, there are some interesting things about this car which immediately separate it from the rest of the pack. For one thing, the power cannot be upgraded at all. All of the others can. This one can't. Something like the Nissan, for instance, can go way higher than its standard power. Even the Porsche and the TS50 can go a little bit higher, around a 30 horsepower increase, if I remember correctly. This one, though, stays at 526. You cannot increase it anymore, you can only decrease it. And of course, decreasing it doesn't really serve that much of a purpose, because it's still Group 1 class either way. As far as torque, you're looking at a huge 652 pound-feet, which of course from a diesel is not surprising. You've got the hybrid all-wheel drive system as well, which is a great help. It weighs 875 kilos, which is pretty good, of course, and you can drop it much, much lower. And the horsepower per tonne, at least to begin with, is just over 600, so high-end supercar level, or LMP level in the case of the newer machines, although that's nowhere near the horsepower per tonne that LMPs used to have, or Group Cs, or a variety of others, LMP 900s even. Now, as far as whether or not this is worth buying, because it is 1,000,000 credits, and that's why it took me so long to get around to getting it, because of course I don't only play GT Sport and get in time to grind money, especially in the world of GT Sport where grinding money is arguably a bit more annoying than it ever has been before on Gran Turismo. It took me a while to get around to it. But I finally picked up the car, and as far as I'm concerned, this is definitely one of the 3 that is worth buying. This is a very good LMP car, and even in comparison to something like the existing R18, it's a better car. I can definitely say that. The handling is better, the way it looks is, well, of course down to personal preference. I personally like it more, but then again, I also like the Ford Edsel, so maybe I'm not the best example when you're asking somebody about the car's appearance. However, in terms of the way it drives, in particular the handling, but of course straight line performance as well, I would say it's easily a step above the existing R18. Top end speed might not be quite as quick, I haven't comprehensively tested that, but it doesn't feel quite a strong top end. As I said, I'm not sure though, but it's such a great driver's car. And what I mean by that is, there are some vehicles, and I've kind of touched on this before, that will get the job done, but they don't necessarily have much character or much passion. They're not really what you'd call fun, they're just fast. And that's not a bad thing for racing. But for me personally, if you have the option of having a race car which is just competitive, or one which is competitive but also really fun, well then why wouldn't you choose to have both if you can? And for me, that is the case with this one. I've never been a huge fan of the R18 anyway, so for me personally, this is actually the first time that I've thoroughly enjoyed using an R18, because I wasn't a fan of the one which is already on the game. Now, the engine sound I think is great on this one. I haven't noticed whether or not it is significantly different to the existing one, because of course they are both diesels. This one is larger though, it's a 4 litre. But it sounds great. It sounds like a Wookiee gargling ball bearings or something. It sounds fantastic, but of course that's coming from someone who likes diesel engines anyway. So again, if people don't like diesels, they probably won't like the way the car sounds. It's very gruff, very low. You can hear the torque almost. But in terms of the way it drives, not just because of the part-time all-wheel drive, but just the way the car's aero works with the updates that the LMP cars continuously have with new regulations, it does definitely feel like a refined concept, because the R18, I believe, lasted longer than any of Audi's other LMPs in terms of how long it has remained in participation. The R8 may be close, so I might be wrong there, but those two, I believe, have had the longest runs, and this really feels like that final generation, or final generations, of an idea. And in the case of this car, that's pretty much what it is, the last generation of an R18, and it's refined the essential advantages, and it doesn't really have any disadvantages anyway. The R18 is a good car, I just don't personally care for it, but it's refined all of the points which were already good about it and made them even better. The handling is not just surprisingly beginner-friendly, which I would definitely say it is, but it's just a pleasure to work with. The car does pretty much exactly what you want it to do in any given situation. At least, of course, with the tuning that I've done to it, and I will, of course, be putting out a tune for this car on the channel, possibly even tomorrow. Now, as far as taking this car around the 24-hour circuit, as you can see here, this is literally my first ever lap with the car. So it really speaks to the innate potential which it has, because although I do make a mistake in the video, I clip the grass here and there, but I mean a full-on off-track mistake, I decided not to restart the lap, but to keep this as the replay for this review, because it just shows, as I said, the potential which this car has. It's a great car to work with. I did about a mile and a half or so of driving with it initially just to make sure that the tuning was working out for it, and then I just went into it, restarted, did that full lap, and this is that first full lap. So I would say this is an excellent choice of LMP1 car. It's not necessarily as bombastic as something like, for instance, the Nissan Nismo, which has got insane straight-line performance, but of course is very controversial for handling, and it's not necessarily as, I wouldn't say smooth, because this is actually a very smooth car, partially due to the fact that it is a diesel, but it's not necessarily as exciting a concept as the Porsche, the 919, for obvious reasons, but I would say that this is a dependable choice. This is more like the GTR of LMP cars. It's the one which you pretty much know you're going to do well if you use it. And for me, that's a step up, because I never use the R18 usually, whereas this car, not just because it's new, but because it's genuinely good, I believe is a car that I may well use. But that's it overall for this particular review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.